In a small suburban KFC, a peaceful evening was about to turn into a battle for dignity and justice. Luis Rivera and his younger brother, Carlos, were enjoying their weekly meal together when a stranger's cruel actions ignited a chain of events that would forever change their lives. What began as a casual outing quickly escalated into a confrontation that would expose the ugly face of entitlement and bullying. Watch as one man's unwavering love for his brother sparks a fight that goes viral and reveals what it truly means to protect those you care about. It was supposed to be a peaceful evening. Luis Rivera and his younger brother Carlos made their weekly trip to the KFC in their quiet suburban neighborhood. Carlos, 14 years old, had a neurological condition that caused his hands to tremble uncontrollably. It was something that, for the most part, he had learned to live with. Their weekly visits to KFC were a comforting routine, a place where Carlos could enjoy his favorite meal without being judged. Luis had always been his protector, his constant shield against the world's cruelty. And in this small corner of their world, there was a sense of normalcy, a fleeting, peaceful moment in the chaos that was life. But tonight, things would change. As they sat at their usual booth, Carlos carefully unwrapped his chicken sandwich, his hands shaking as he brought it to his mouth. Luis smiled at him, trying to reassure him without words. This was their place, and no one would ruin it. But as they were about to dig in, the door of the fast food restaurant swung open, and a woman walked in, exuding an air of entitlement. She wore a white suit, her heels clicking loudly against the floor as she strutted through the restaurant. Karen Bellamy was the kind of woman who thought the world owed her something. She had a look of superiority that could make anyone feel small. As she approached the counter to place her order, she noticed Carlos. Her eyes narrowed, and she looked at him with a mix of disgust and disdain. Carlos, who had been enjoying his meal, suddenly felt a sharp pang of discomfort. He looked up, unsure of what was happening. He wasn't used to this people staring at him with judgment in their eyes. But Luis, ever the protective older brother, didn't think much of it at first. He assumed it was just another one of those moments when people didn't understand Carlos's condition. But then it started. Karen, clearly irritated by Carlos's presence, muttered under her breath. Luis could hear her faintly, but he chose to ignore it. It was the next comment that broke the silence. Disgusting. She sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Shouldn't be out in public like that. People like him don't belong here. Luis's heart clenched in his chest. He had heard people say things like this before, but it never stopped the rage from bubbling up inside him. He glanced at Carlos, whose eyes were wide with confusion and hurt. He didn't fully understand what Karen was saying, but he could feel the sting of her words. "Leave him alone," Luis muttered, his voice steady but filled with anger. He stood up and walked toward the counter, his steps firm but controlled. But Karen wasn't done. "What? Are you going to protect him?" she scoffed, clearly enjoying the power she felt. "You're nothing but a pair of freaks, a waste of space." Luis took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. But Carlos's hands were trembling more now, and his face was flushed with embarrassment. That was all it took, without warning. Karen approached Carlos's table. She stood over him, towering with her white suit, and in one swift motion, kicked him in the shin. Carlos cried out in pain, his body jerking from the sudden impact. He lost his balance and fell to the floor, his head hitting the ground with a sickening thud. The room fell silent. Luis's heart raced. He rushed to his brother's side, his mind spinning with rage and fear. Carlos was dazed, his face pale as he tried to get up. But Karen wasn't done yet. "Ugh, pathetic," she sneered. "Can't even control himself in public. You're a disgrace." Luis's fists clenched. He was beyond anger now. His protective instinct surged, the way it always did when Carlos was hurt. "Enough," he shouted, his voice breaking through the tense silence. But Karen laughed. "Oh, you think you can stop me?" she taunted, her voice dripping with venom. "Go ahead. Fight me. See what happens." Luis's entire body trembled with fury. He had to stop her. He couldn't let her get away with this. In a moment of clarity, Luis grabbed the nearest object, a Coke can sitting on the table. Without thinking, he swung it with all his might, the can connecting with Karen's face with a sickening thud. She stumbled back, her nose broken, blood splattering on the floor as she fell to the ground. The restaurant gasped. Luis, breathing heavily, stood over Karen, his mind still racing. But before he could process what had happened, Karen, bloodied but not defeated, reached into her purse. She pulled out a knife, her eyes wild with rage. "You think you're better than me," she hissed, brandishing the blade. Luis's heart skipped a beat. He was ready to defend himself, to protect his brother at all costs. He grabbed a tray from the nearby table, holding it in front of him like a shield. As Karen lunged at him, he blocked her attack, the knife scraping across the tray. In one swift motion, he shoved her back, sending her crashing into the fryer station. The impact knocked her down, and the hot oil splashed, adding more injury to her already battered body. The restaurant's manager quickly moved in, ensuring Karen was restrained and arrested. The entire altercation had been filmed by bystanders, and the footage spread like wildfire, turning Karen into a viral sensation. Her assault on Carlos, her cruel behavior, and the way she tried to retaliate had now become public knowledge. Karen was arrested, her actions justified as self-defense. Luis's heart pounded as he helped Carlos to his feet. The viral videos painted Karen as the villain, and Luis as the protector, someone who would do whatever it took to stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. As Luis and Carlos left the restaurant, their bond had never been stronger. They walked out together, Carlos's trembling hands now held steady by his older brother. It wasn't just about the physical fight they had won. It was about something much deeper. It was about dignity, love, and standing up for what was right, even when it meant facing the consequences. The community rallied behind Luis and Carlos, offering their support and protection. They were no longer the victims. They were heroes, and their story would be told for years to come. The final message of the story was clear sometimes. Justice isn't just about the law, it's about standing tall for the ones you love, even when the world seems determined to knock you down.